Hello, and welcome to reCapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at reCapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hello, Ashley.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
I'm ready to take a trip to Italy. How are you?
Literally and figuratively.
Like legit.
Well, let's go. We are going to the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
Conclave. It premiered October 25th, 2024. It is 2 hours long. It's rated PG, Ashley. It is a thriller mystery, and it's available on Prime. Here's a summary. Conclave follows one of the world's most secretive and ancient events, selecting the new pope. Cardinal Lawrence is tasked with running this covert process after the unexpected death of the beloved pope. Once the Catholic Church's most powerful leaders have gathered from around the world and are locked together in the Vatican halls, Lawrence uncovers a trail of deep secrets left in the dead Pope's wake. Secrets which could shake the foundations of the church. Cast. We have Ralph Fiennes as Lawrence, Stanley Tucci as Bellini, John Lithgow as Tremblay, Lucian Samedi as Adiami, Jacek Koman as Wozniak, Sergio Castelletto as Tedesco, Carlos Diaz as Benitez, Isabella Rossellini as Sister Angus. Director, we have Edward Berger, and screenwriter is Peter Strine. We'll go with that. Rotten Tomatoes, Ashley. Critics gave this movie 93%, 86% for the audience, and Google users gave this film 82%. What is your grade for Conclave?
You know, this happens rarely, but it happens where I watch something and I don't feel like I can grade it necessarily. And Conclave is one of those for me. I don't know if it's the subject matter that it is around religion and around the Catholic Church, but I was like thinking about it as I finished my second watch, and I was like, I mean, the acting obviously was compelling. When I watched this the first time, I remember thinking the pacing is slow but intentional because you're really taking in this process and taking in the undertones of the politics and the personalities and all that goes into it. So I can't say I feel like I can really give it a letter grade, but I will say that I feel like this movie was worth a watch, especially because of the fact that we have lived through this now a couple of times. And so to better understand the process was fascinating.
Okay. I gave this movie an A. I thought visually it was beautiful. I felt like the acting was superb. The subject matter was very interesting because, to your point, this is a very real life like thing. And especially as someone who is not a part of the Catholic Church, to have essentially a window, even though it's a sliver of time, a moment in time, it still was really fascinating. I also say that because I really enjoy movies like Doubt from 2008. I started Two Popes, which is on Netflix. I didn't finish it. It's just very fascinating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, spoiler alert. I felt like this movie was very brazen in how they showed the dead Pope. Okay. Like, I felt like it was a lot when they just showed his body, when they got the ring, and then they moved the body. And like, there was this shot of the face in the bag, essentially, for like several, it felt like forever, but I'm sure it was only a few seconds. I was like, okay, they are making it clear this position has been vacant. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ashley?
I mean, I get what you're saying in terms of possibly feeling like it was a little bit morbid, but I guess I thought of it more like what a peaceful end to your life, right? Like it's like
Yes.
Rose on Titanic to get to die old and warm in your bed just
Yeah.
sounds like perfection. You know, that's the way that we all want to go out. So that's what I was thinking during that scene is like the reverence that they still, you know, obviously had for this man even in death, but also just the
Mhm.
peace at which someone of that caliber is able to leave this earth wasn't lost on me.
I appreciate that perspective because for me, the way it was set up, and then again, we come in with Cardinal Lawrence not knowing what happened, and the music, you talk about how this is a slower movie, but I feel like it breathes a lot, right? And then the music plays such an interesting role that I'm sitting up wondering, did the Pope die of natural causes? Because you find out there was some drama up in the Curia.
I never imagined murder. Murder. I didn't think this was Clue, but again it just felt weighty because again this is history, right? It's
Yes.
weight to the position, it's weight to the decisions that have to be made. But I just wanted to
Yes.
say really quick how disconcerting it is when you think about it that Ray Fiennes can play Voldemort
Listen,
and play a cardinal.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins, freaking Hannibal Lecter to Pope John Paul II. So yeah,
I mean,
range. We call that range.
and the thing is I don't even think of him as Voldemort when I'm watching this portrayal.
You know what's so funny? I'm so glad that you said this because going down memory lane. So movies was always a part of my family. Like what we did, we watched movies, we rented them. Shout out to Blockbuster, and
Those were the
we also
days.
had a cheap movie theater we would go to also where it was like not necessarily the brand new movies but the movies before they went
Danbury
to
Dollar Saver Cinemas. Yes.
exactly, and so we
Smelled
would
like pee
go,
in there, but
girl, because it's probably all the old popcorn and they didn't wash
yes.
those rugs, I'm sorry, the carpet, or the seats.
Yes. Terrible.
But I remember my dad took me and my sister to see Red Dragon, and Ray Fiennes was the star of that.
Yep.
And again, we were entirely too young when we saw it, but of course we went. My dad took us. That character, he played the heck out of the character. The character was obviously demented. He was a serial killer, and you know the crime was solved. But the fact that Made in Manhattan was made so closely to that film. And when I saw in Manhattan, I was so geeked because Jennifer Lopez was in her rom-com bag. Okay. She was newly off of The Wedding Planner. And when I saw that movie, I was like, I could not get in that movie whatsoever with
No.
her with falling in love with this quote unquote billionaire. Oh, well, there weren't billionaires at that time, but successful businessman. I was like, this is not working for me at
If
all.
there's one blip in her rom-com bag, it was Made in Manhattan. That was a terrible film. Their
Because she had
chemistry was
no
awful,
chemistry
and he
with
did not need to be a leading man in a romantic comedy. This man is an
period.
actor.
He is he's borderline a character actor where it's like he gets lost, like you said, in girl. I was like, this was the worst thing ever. Shout out to our listeners. This is why you listen to us, right? We're talking about Conclave.
Hey, it all tracks. It all flows. I think I've seen Made in Manhattan exactly one time,
I
and it
know.
was terrible.
It was not great. It was not great. And part of it was because of Ray Fiennes. But we love him in everything else he does because, again, he's a phenomenal actor, but not everybody's a Matthew
Phenomenal.
McConaughey. Okay. So, speaking of whether or not this is a murder mystery or not, so obviously it's not, but the way things were set up with Tremblay and Ediemi and Wozniak just giving him essentially the rundown of the Pope's last day and last hours is like, who was the last person with him? And, you know, why wasn't I called immediately? Like that just felt shady. But Tremblay, of course, was like, oh, I just wanted to make sure I had everything in order. So that ended, the opening scene. It's worth noting because I'm going to incorporate a little bit of real life with what went in the movie. The conclave happens 15 to 20 days after the Pope dies. And so that's why we see 3 weeks later, it is the eve of the conclave. Father Lawrence is the dean of the Cardinals, and he is going to be responsible for the vote. The other thing that I thought was fascinating is all the Cardinals from around the world under the age of 80 years old come in and cast their votes. We have Bellini, who, again, from the opening scene, we realized was good friends with the Pope. There's murmurs about him being the potential Pope. He doesn't want it. Shout out to Jon Snow.
Oh yeah.
Um,
In this case though, I didn't know if that was true.
and we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there very quickly, okay? So the front runners on the eve of the conclave are Bellini, Tremblay, Tedesco. So our Bishop Wozniak shows up at like the final hour saying, before you go in there, I need you to know that the Pope actually fired Tremblay. He was like, there was tensions between him and the former Pope, and he was dismissed because of misconduct. Did you have any doubts from Archbishop Wozniak? I have here in particular, does being a drunk make you an unreliable witness?
Yes, because it alters your mind state, right? And it alters your memories, and you can't necessarily recall with the same level you would if you were sober. So yes, absolutely, it impacts you. But I didn't know either if this is hearsay and gossip, or if there's truth to what he was saying. I just thought of it as like, look at the tea being spilled, okay?
I think that was the one thing that was really interesting about this film is the humanity, the light of humanity that was like glaring on these cardinals, right?
Yeah.
And I say
That's what
that
we're gonna call
because
it, the light of humanity.
what else should we call it?
Some of them show they asses for
Oh, girl.
sure.
But I was very much a straight laced Christian girl growing up. And it really took me growing up to realize like these people be cussing, these people be smoking, these people be drinking. Like, you know what I mean? I just
I mean, obviously nobody is perfect. I just
right.
think, and I've had this conversation so many times with people about like my thoughts about religious leaders. You are held to a higher standard, whether you
Yes.
want to be or not. And so
Yes.
I look at you as rising above petty human desires,
Yes.
thoughts, not necessarily like strife and issues, but like that your level of consciousness and connection to God just has you at a different tier of like your thought process and how you navigate things. And so whenever that is not the case, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. So are you sure you were chosen or did you choose yourself?
Listen, listen. It's so funny. A study just came out that says like 1 in 5 CEOs are like psychopaths. Like there's just as many psychopaths in C-suite positions than there are in jails. And I'm like, I almost want to know what it would be like if you were to look at like faith leaders, where they fall under that analysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I mentioned, we have our front runners and Adiyami. He's also a front runner. Before they close the doors, they get one more archbishop. And it is the Archbishop of Kabul, Cardinal Benitez. I called him in my notes the dark horse. They were like, what? Who, what, when, where, and how, right? Apparently, this is all done in secret with the Pope. I think it's interesting because, like, in this movie, there are hints of like whether or not the previous Pope was in his right mind, right? Like, oh, well, he was ill. It could have been a heart attack. He wasn't all there. And so I was like, do we trust this?
Yes. I don't even know if it's trust. It was just kind of like, is this new guy telling the truth? Right. That was more so what it was. I don't think I was questioning the Pope. It was more so, is this cardinal real and honest,
Mm-hmm.
or is he some type of charlatan who's come out of the woodwork? Like I didn't know what to
Yeah.
make of it because I didn't even know what creating a cardinal, what was the language they use, like in
In
patore or
yeah.
something.
Yep.
I didn't
Yep.
know what that meant, so I'm like, what is this situation that we find ourselves in? Pectore, I think was the word. What is this
Yes.
situation that we're finding ourselves in, and is it going to be something where it's like somebody, you know, come in to stir the pot and they're not who they say they are?
Right. I think the funniest line was when Cardinal Lawrence was like, I'd like to introduce you to Benitez. He became an archbishop, perfectly legitimate process. Like, I also believe this is one of his first major decisions, being, as I mentioned before, the dean of these cardinals for this vote.
And he wasn't particularly excited about the position he found himself in.
Girl, girl, I mean, Sir was distraught. And I think it's significant to highlight that he was dealing with doubts in his prayers. Again, the humanity side of things, like, I thought they did a really great job throughout the movie speaking on doubt. And there was a particular line that someone said that I thought was beautiful with, like, I think he actually says it before the vote. He says, faith is a living thing because it walks hand in hand with God. And he also says, grant us a pope who doubts, who sins and asks forgiveness and carries on. He did his job, but it was a job for sure. I have in my notes, let the Game of Thrones begin. So it took Tedesco to point out that the Cardinals were divided by language. I was like, oh,
And race.
and race. Even in the most holy of places, we are still at the mercy of our baser instincts of like congregating with people that we, I guess, feel comfortable with. I mean, I don't know. I expect more from them.
Again, if they aren't better, who is? Right?
Right. Right.
This is what I'm always saying. I'm seeking the people who are at a higher elevation. If they're not these people, who are they?
So true. And as I mentioned, the clicks are clicking. Okay. We got Bellini talking about I don't want it, but him and his clique of liberal cardinals are like, we want you. And he was like, well, this is my position. He called it a common sense approach. He's like, he doesn't want to do all the services in Latin. He doesn't want people having a bunch of babies and not knowing about how that happened. And I think it was really interesting. He's like, he wanted women to play a larger role. And this is distinctly the opposite of Tedesco, who is extremely conservative, and even Adiami, who has anti-LGBTQ positions. Again, the conversation of, you should be concerned with the men who want this role, because the men that are dangerous are the ones who would do pretty much anything for it. Mm. I love that. Quick side note, this is based off of a popular book. I didn't know that right away, but it does make sense because I believe it won for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars. Let me verify. Yes, it won Best Adapted Screenplay. It's based off Conclave by Robert Harris. This book came out in 2016. I also think it's interesting because Mr. Fine's father, Lawrence, in the book is Italian, and he's obviously English. And so when they changed it over for the movie, he was like, do they have any English cardinals? And he said there was only one. Like, fun fact of the movie. All right, so we go into day one of the conclave. As I mentioned, Father Lawrence had some words that were pretty inspirational, talking about we must be tolerant, and God's gift to the church is variety. So essentially, he's saying DEI is a good thing, Ashley.
Well, thank God.
I feel like people miss the mark every time when it comes to that. Like, as I mentioned, Tremblay is a front runner, and Father Lawrence, he did confront him and was like, what conversation did y'all have, your last conversation with the Pope? And did you believe Cardinal Tremblay ever in this movie?
I didn't know what to believe. I'm watching the Daddy from Third Rock from the Sun, and I'm like, who's the liar here? And why are we lying in general? Like, why are we playing this game? Drama, drama, drama. Were you asked to resign, sir? By the Pope?
And when he said, oh, I can't disclose of that conversation. Of course you can't disclose of that freaking conversation. You got to be kidding me. The votes begin. I really love these scenes, Ashley, of the votes. I just think, again, visually, I thought this film was beautiful, especially with everyone in their reds. I saw videos about the behind the scenes, and the director mentioned that they're not allowed to film at the Vatican. And so they had to create the room of the Sistine Chapel, and then they also had to build the dorm room areas. But yeah, I thought that was really fun. What did you think about the voting? I felt like they were pretty stressful. I'm like, who got all the votes? And Adiyami from the beginning had a lot of votes. I was like, okay, Black man.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely like stressful. It made me think that was going to be how this conclave went with the actual Pope in real life. So when it only took 2 votes, I was like, oh, quit playing with me. Y'all don't be up there doing about 6, 7, 8 votes just to get to the majority needed. So it was definitely dramatized. And I also did not like the way they were coming at Lawrence, particularly Bellini, when my guy in that first vote only got 5 votes. He was like, I never realized how ambitious you are. I'm like,
Ashley,
I got 5 votes. What do you want me to do?
Ashley, I was shocked on how many times people said that Lawrence was ambitious. I was like, where did they get this from? I literally put in my notes, Houseway, this man wants to leave.
They were projecting. That's all it was. I was like, this is projecting. That's ridiculous. He had 5 votes in that first vote. I never knew you were so ambitious. You think I didn't rally 5 people behind me just to sabotage you? What are you talking about?
But for me, I'm like, how did Benitez get votes if nobody knew he existed?
Well, what's interesting is if he didn't vote for himself, particularly, who
Yes.
was the one who voted, because they showed a special relationship with him and Lawrence in that he was backing Lawrence hard, right?
Yes, exactly. He couldn't shake him. Like Lawrence was like, stop voting for me. Vote for like Bellini. And he was like, no, you don't want it. And I think that's the best person to have it.
Yeah. What was the line? And it's so random from the film with Amanda Bynes and Channing Tatum. And he said that line about some people have greatness thrust upon them. And that is what Lawrence's character is supposed to be like. Somebody who rejects that, but is just deemed to be needed in leadership, even by the Pope.
Even by the Pope. The plot thickens, okay, Ashley? Because first, there's some fight going on in the dorms in the middle of the night. And then the next day, there was a dust up in the eating area with a nun. It was Cardinal Adiyami and nun Shishumi. Lawrence is like, what is going on? And I was a little disappointed because, again, rooting for everybody Black. I was like, what is Adiyami doing? This is not in good taste if you trying to get some votes to be the Pope.
Like I said, people were showing their asses. I don't know what else to say. It made me sad watching it the first time how much some people really wanted that seat of power, because what is it that you want to do with it? It is the question that I have. Like, is it
it's like once you have it,
for
once
the
you got the
greater
power,
good, or is it for
self-serving.
your ego?
Yep.
Like Adiyami in particular, I was like, bro, you breaking down over this.
Exactly. Like the pressure is getting to you and the votes ain't even over. Girl, apparently he is the father. Okay. Lawrence had to, Sister Agnes didn't play with nobody. Okay. But he got the tea and they got a 30-year-old son. But the problem wasn't even that he had a baby. The problem is she was a teenager.
19.
It was a lapse.
And talking about we were so young. He was like, nah, she was young. You were 30.
Yo, when he was like, is there still hope? He said, oh no, there's no hope.
Yeah, he was like, are you going to tell people? No, I'm not going to say anything. I'm bound by the confessional. I won't say anything. But you know how it goes. Gossip. You know how rumors will spread. You have no hope of ever being the Pope. Start anew. This man broke down. So again, who did you want to be Pope for?
But to be fair, it was within reach. You know what I mean?
So
it kind of goes back into that conversation that Bellini was having with Lauren. He's like, you cannot tell me people don't even have their name chosen yet. He's like, well, I don't. He's like, sir, you're a rarity then. Or you're BSing me.
Like, this felt like politics. That's what I said after my first watch. This is politics. This is watching the y'all running for president. Y'all ain't running for Pope.
It's giving Scandal. It's giving House of Cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
because who becomes a priest to become the Pope? Nobody, right? That's never supposed to be your intention.
Exactly. But the plot thickens because he said that he was set up. He could have been voted in and nobody would have had not nary a clue if it wasn't for somebody who did some digging and specifically asked that woman to come. He's like, this woman hasn't left the African soil ever. And now she's here? This was a setup.
Indeed.
While that's cooking over there, Mansoor Ray is Lawrence Little Bird. Shout out to the Game of Thrones reference. Getting all the tea, wanting to know what is up with Benitez and all these trips to Switzerland for health. Like, oh my goodness, is he okay? Like Adiami is out. Bellini is essentially out. Bellini is asking, like, who can I like get my followers to, get behind? And they were like, the worst scenario is Trumbly. And this was a really good conversation of, do we really want to do this? This is not ideal, right? But somebody said, we're mortal men who serve an ideal, but we cannot always be ideal. And therefore, they would rather vote for Trumbly than to Disco. Did you have any front runners, Ashley, while watching the film?
I hope somebody was going to come out of the wings because it just didn't feel like the pick of the litter we had was, to their point, going to be beneficial based on sounded like views. Like if who we follow is the liberal arm of the Catholic Church and possibilities, then that conservative arm doesn't sound like it's going to be the answer from my perspective. So I was hoping for some type of Hail Mary.
Things got so desperate, Ashley, that Cardinal Lawrence had to go into the Pope's room. He broke the seal. I was like, is he allowed to do this?
I don't think so.
No, either. One thing he did was he did his job. He did his job thoroughly. And he got proof on who did it. So we have this big confrontation in the dining room. He had all the reports, and Trumbly was in the middle, just guilty, trying to weasel his way out. But Lawrence had the proof that Trumbly specifically asked for the nun. And the way that Adiami called him Judas, I was like, damn.
Betrayal.
Right. Deception. Disgrace. Do you know where that's from, Ashley?
Mm-mm.
This Lion King too.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. It was fitting though. Again, Adiami's out. Trumbly is out. Lawrence was trying to get Bellini to come back in, but Bellini was like, I don't want to go in under these, under blackmail. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. Lawrence went in on him saying, I voted for you 5 times and now I regret it because you lack the courage to be Pope.
Red. A read.
Or Phil. Okay. Wow. So Lawrence is like, I guess it's going to be me.
Somebody got to step up and do it.
I thought it was rich that as soon as he cast his vote for himself, the bomb blew. What do you think they were trying to, what message do you think they were trying to send with that?
That wasn't the direction that was meant to be, right? That needed a little disruption to change the course of action. I mean, clearly, from the way that the structure of the film is going, the Pope has a hand in it, even in death. He has set forth a chain of events as he was kind of moving towards his final days that have ripple effects over this conclave.
Interesting. I didn't even take it as that, but I like this stance. This was a very fascinating part of the movie. Unfortunately, with this bomb, people did die and were injured. And so when the Cardinals came together in an informal discussion, Tedesco wants a freaking religious war. And he was going in ham like, this is what you get for being nice, essentially. You know what I mean? To the Muslim brothers and sisters. And Benitez came in so real saying, what do you know about war? I was like, snaps.
He was over in Kabul. Okay. He's
exactly.
Like, you over here cushy, been living the life. You can't even begin to imagine. I mean, it's not just what he said, it's his tone. You know how
Yes.
you meet people who are so soft spoken, you know, they're pretty observant, they're pretty, you know, introverted. So when they do speak, you listen. That's what he was for me.
Exactly. Exactly. Loved this monologue so much. He's like, small petty men only concerned with votes and Rome. And the church is not who we are in the past, it's what's next.
Bars.
I was like, whew, a word. And the dark horse, Ashley, of this entire movie
The
gets
Hail Mary.
elected Pope.
There we go.
Lawrence as Cardinal, or now newly appointed Pope Benitez, his name, he says innocence. Did you pick up any metaphors in that selection of names? Innocent is a name for popes. There's been, I want to say, 14 of them. Because I was like, I've never heard of innocent in my life. You know what I mean?
I thought it was just for
Um,
drama.
right. Exactly. Ray is working overtime, Ashley. He is the MVP of this movie, okay? I think we should do that segment, like, just whenever we do a project, like, who is the MVP?
We
Because, like,
usually say it. We usually
we usually
say,
say it,
like,
but we
even for
don't.
just the 4 seasons, Claude was definitely our
Claude
MVP.
was, but for G20,
It was
my
Viola, but we also loved Manny. So
that's what I'm saying. For
yeah,
G20, it was Manny, right?
yeah. And we said it. We said it.
But I'm saying it should be something we should do like more like
Special call
intentionally.
out. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because Ray was like, I didn't think the vote was gonna go this way because I got more tea, sir. He was like, you should ask about the procedure. And sure enough, I feel sorry for Lawrence at this point because I feel like he needs a stiff drink at this point. Like, I know they don't drink, and I'm pretty sure they don't smoke weed, but Sir needs a vacation because this conclave was full of drama. And come to find out that Cardinal Benitez was intersex.
Yeah.
The decision, again, laid with Lawrence on whether or not he should say something, and he decided not to. And that's how the movie ends. Kind of like, well, here's another day, here's a new day. I read that some people said that in some ways it's like a quiet evolution of the church without people actually knowing it. Like
Hmm.
you can't make big strides. Sometimes you have to make small incremental changes. How would you interpret the ending of this movie, Ashley?
You know, I just took it as what he did with those other Cardinals was for the best because they were not the best people for the job in character. And what he did with this particular Cardinal is protect because he did have the character for that position, right? So he was always doing, in my opinion, what was in the best interest of the whole and not just
Yes.
the politics of, you know, what some of those other folks were trying to do at the time. And I can understand that in terms of, you know, making progress, but you know, I looked at it beyond that. I didn't really look at it as like, oh, this is an intersex person who's going to be serving as pope because that will never come out and will never be understood or felt by the other cardinals, by the church, by anybody like that. But to me, it showed that more so the best idea and reflection of the true need and extension of God's love was chosen no matter what that looked like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I took it as that beyond anything else, beyond race, beyond gender, anything like that. Like the correct person, regardless of anything, got to be chosen and ordained in that position.
I agree. All right, Ashley, do you have any final thoughts for Conclave?
Mm, I'm sure that it has racked up. many views even from our listeners. But if you guys have not checked it out, please do so that you are just a little bit more informed on at least the dramatized version of this process because it was fascinating.
Really fascinating. As I mentioned, I did some research on this topic because it's always fascinating. And as Ashley mentioned earlier, we've gone through a couple of these now in our lives. And I will say like the last two are the ones that I remember the most. And I feel like each time this happens, I take away more information. So the first one is, of course, is the smoke. So the black smoke represents, the saying is black smoke, no pope. And so it's until you get the white smoke, the pope has been voted on and chosen. But the very first conclave happened in the 12th century. And that's because back in 1268, a group of cardinals were responsible for voting for pope, and it took them 1,006 days to do it. And the people were like, this took entirely too long. So they literally locked these people up with a key, rationed foods, and removed the roof. I'm like, talk about medieval.
Wow.
That tickled me so much. Obviously, things are different, but it's still the same. You need 2/3 of the vote. And as I mentioned before, you have to be under 80 years old. And I guess technically any baptized male Catholic could be elected pope, but of course, that'll never happen. This was very fascinating, and I thought the film was really well done. And that's all I have for today. So, time for hitting gems. Ashley, what you got?
All right. First up is Matriarch by Tina Knowles. I know it's a bestseller. And so while I was traveling last week, I downloaded the audiobook and got started and really am enjoying like hearing from Miss Tina and her childhood, her family history, from her grandparents to her parents to her siblings. I didn't know much about her outside of obviously being Beyonce and Solange's mama, doing her thing with hair and costume and all of that. So to hear like a reflection of her life is fascinating, but also, and I was mentioning this to my mom, her level of recall of like detail from like being 5 years old and all this. I was like,
Yeah,
man, even at in my 30s, I don't think I have that level of like recall to detail. So I'm just so impressed. And so far, like it really is. And I'm about probably 5 chapters in or so.
I was gonna
Um,
say, did you finish it? Because I'm still waiting on it for my Libby.
no, ma'am, I have definitely not finished it. It is I'm just enjoying the journey so far. And then like there's a foreword or dedication or whatever you want to call it from Solange, from Beyonce, from Kelly, and from Angie Beyonce. And I really enjoyed hearing their commentary as well. So that is Matriarch by Tina Knowles, available wherever you get your books. And then we have a common hidden gem this week in a
We
top 10
do.
Netflix show, Forever, by the lovely Mara Brock Akil.
Yes, yes, yes. We'll talk about that. I also have a book. It's called Great Big Beautiful Life. It is by Emily Henry. I have talked about Emily Henry books multiple times on this podcast. I am a fan. This is a departure to what she's written in the past. It's giving the seven husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you know, you know. But it still was really interesting and fun. And I read a lot of books, and this was definitely a standout this year. So, Great Big Beautiful Life. Check it
Very
out.
nice.
And as Ashley mentioned, we both have Forever
Hmm.
as our hidden gem. I know people are already asking, are we recapping it? I'm like, well, it just came out this weekend, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, it'll make the list. It's
It
one of
will.
the pillars of what we podcast for, right? It's black, it's a
Yes.
black woman that is
Yes.
spearheading this. It's primarily a black cast. And it's also, it's love, it's young love, it's the
It's
highs and
beautifully
lows.
done.
Yeah. It's
I
you
have
get
to
to go, you
say,
get to go have a little black opulence as well, which we always
yes.
like. So,
I'm like, do I need to buy a house in
and
Martha
Oak
Vineyard?
Bluffs, yeah.
Girl, I will say, with this being a team project, this is the first time I think ever that I felt I was leaning more towards the parent side of things more than anything.
I have been feeling that now for years.
Yeah,
So,
well, how can I explain this, Ashley? Like, they're so young. They're so young making these dumb decisions. And I am like, yo, shout out to his mama and shout out to the parents. Like, I thought they were very ideal. Like, I appreciate his parents so much in this project. And they've already got a season two.
they already got a season 2. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it'll make the recap list, guys. It will definitely be on there. So you can look forward to that. And that's it. That's all I have. Anything else for you?
That's it, Ashley.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for sticking with us and listening to this episode. On Thursday's episode, we will definitely give you our review of our time at the film festival. So look
Yes,
forward
yes,
to that.
yes.
But please share this out with everybody you know. We will be back. But in the meantime, as always, guys, be blessed.
Bye.